Good morning. Fall is here. I'm excited. I'm coming alive in fall. I got my blazer on. I'm excited. Fall is my favorite season. How many of y'all love fall? Yeah, most of y'all. Yeah, we don't like 98 degrees. Not the boy band, but the temperatures, right? Like, we want it to be cold and cozy, and I'm excited for it. But I think one of the reasons I like fall, and many of us like fall, is because when fall comes, there's this distinct difference that happens everywhere, right? The leaves are changing colors. The air is different. The atmosphere is different. The temperature is different. Food is different. Fashion is different. And there's this rhythm of change that we like to see as human beings. There's this social media trend that was going on recently. It's called Unrecognizable. It's like you do this makeup that is like a major glow up that you look unrecognizable. They also use that to kind of do an exercise routine where you follow this challenge for a little bit and then you become unrecognizable. Now, back in my day, and if you're ever wondering how old I am, I'm old enough to say stuff like back in my day. Okay, so back in my day, there was this show called Ambush Makeover. How many of y'all watch Ambush Makeover? Not many of you. Oh, there's a few. It was savage, okay, y'all? So since y'all don't know, I'll kind of explain. So Ambush Makeover, your friends, the people in your life that are supposed to be your friends who love you unconditionally, send in your name to a national television show and tell them that you haven't gotten your hair cut in 5 years, that you need to slap some makeup on your face, and that you have no style, okay? And then these camera crews come and ambush you and say, we're gonna give you a makeover. And these professional celebrity stylists come and give you a haircut, put makeup on you, make you go shopping, alter your clothes, put these clothes on you, and then they spin the chair around so you can see yourself, and you're like, oh, I'm unrecognizable, right? And then you walk in front of those haters who sent your name in, and you stand there, and they're like, oh, she's unrecognizable, she's so beautiful, and it's great. Like, I love the show, right? But I always wondered after I turned it off, how do these people keep up with this transformation now, right? Like, what are they gonna do? They don't have personal stylists. They don't have celebrity stylists to dress them up. I mean, their closet is gonna look exactly the same when they go home, right? Their sense of fashion, their makeup skills remain the same. So how are they gonna keep up with this transformed, unrecognizable version of themselves? And I think for us as Christians, for when we get baptized and we come up out of the water and everyone's cheering us on and they're like, you're so different now. And you feel different because Jesus has made you alive and you know something's different. And then you walk out of service and you go and you drive the streets of Norman and you're like, man, these people have not changed, right? You go to the restaurant and people have not changed. You go to work and people have not changed. The same problems are there. Same people are there. And your family, everyone is the same. And you're wondering, how do I live transformed? How do I keep up with this unrecognizable version of myself? You see, salvation is instantaneous. Like we sang, the work has been done. But how do we keep up with this transformation? And that process is called sanctification. And that is a daily process where we have to do the work. And so we've been in this series called Steps, where we learn practical ways for a personal transformation so we can do the work to look more like Jesus. And Jason wrapped up the series last week with the final step. If you missed any of it, I encourage you to go to YouTube or podcast and watch it. But I felt in my spirit that God was saying, I don't want us to rush out of the series. I want us to sit and rest in it just a little longer. Because how many of you know you can go to church, hear a good message, you can go to conference, you can go to youth camp, you can hear a good talk, you can feel some deep things, but you walk out and live exactly the same way. Because just because we know better doesn't mean that we do better. And I felt like God was saying, I don't want my people to miss it this time. So we're gonna stay in this series a little bit because I think we live in times that are demanding us to do better, church. If we look around, our world is broken, our nation is divided, There's school shootings and civil unrest. There's natural disasters. It seems like there's something horrible happening every single week, and evil is on the rise. And we are all waiting for the world to change. But how will the world change if you and I, children of light, people who claim to know the truth, do not recognize our need to change and decide to do the work to change? Gathering is not the goal. Transformation has always been the goal, that we would come into this place and we would leave transformed, that we would look like Jesus as we go into our workplaces, as we go to our college campuses, as we go to our neighborhoods and our jobs, that we can then transform the world for Jesus. Amen? I have been a physical therapist for over 15 years, and probably 95% of the patients that I have seen, I have said this one statement to them, and that is, I wish you had come in sooner. Whether it's surgery or whether it's just pain, I wish you had come in sooner. Because one of the first questions I ask my patients when they come for that initial visit is, when did your back first start hurting? When did you have that shoulder injury? And most often the answer is, oh, it's been several months. It's been a few years. It's been decades, right? Because we live in a culture that says, well, if it ain't broke, why fix it, right? So the follow-up question I usually ask them is, well, why didn't you get any treatment until now? Because I need to know, before we start this process of healing, what is that thing that I'm up against? What is going to hinder their healing? Why didn't you get any treatment sooner? And I want to present to you some of the responses that I hear often. And even though they're saying these responses in regards to their physical pain, I think we can apply it to our spiritual lives. And I think you'll resonate with them. So lean in and listen. First, I thought it would go away, right? How many of you have said that? Guilty, right? Especially when it comes to going to the dentist. I know we got dentists and dental hygienists here. I just don't like coming and seeing y'all, but I love you. I love seeing y'all here in the room, right? So I go and they're like, why didn't you come in sooner? And I'm like, I thought it would go away. They're like, ma'am, half your tooth is missing. Like, I know, I thought it would just go away, right? Because we think things will just change. And so if we just ignore it, if we don't look at it, it will just change. But how many of you know, even in our spiritual life and every part of our life, that things don't just go away? Time doesn't heal all wounds. In fact, things build up and it gets worse as it becomes chronic. Number two, I didn't have time or money to do therapy or take time off for surgery, which is a fair response, right? It's just going to cost me too much to change something now. And I think in our spiritual lives, in our life, we often will say, hey, that's going to cause me too much to pause right now. I know I need to focus on my marriage. I know I need to have this hard conversation, but that's going to just cause me a lot financially and relationally to do something about this issue right now. Next, we say, I just pushed through the pain. This is my least favorite answer. I just pushed through the pain. And I just kept going. My body was like, ow, stop it. But I kept going because I could. And in life and in our spiritual walk, it sounds like I knew that person wasn't right. I had this gut feeling. There was this thing inside of me that I just knew I shouldn't have went there. I felt the Holy Spirit convicting me, but I just ignored that voice and I made a bad decision. Then I made the next one, and then it became this unhealthy pattern until I was stuck in this vicious cycle until I hit rock bottom. Then they'll say, I just figured it's because I'm old or because I gained weight, right? They say, well, this is probably just part of life. This is just me. This is just my new normal. And in our spiritual life and in life, it usually sounds like, well, my dad was an angry person, right? My mom was not around. My family always struggled with addiction issues. Maybe it's just me. This is just part of my story. Maybe it's my fault. Maybe I deserve this. This is just the hand I was dealt. And then my sweet older ladies will say, honey, I don't want to take anyone's spot who really needs it. My issue really isn't that bad anyway, right? And I think the deeper issue here when it comes to our spiritual life, why we don't go to God, why we don't tell people about our struggle is because we don't see our worth to bring our need to Jesus. We don't see our worth. We don't think we're worthy enough to live abundant, whole lives. And my favorite response, I knew PT would hurt, right? Because we have a reputation. But my response is always, but you're already hurting. Might as well try something, right? But don't these excuses sound familiar? We stay stuck, often in our brokenness, with one or more of these responses, even in our spiritual life. And today, I want us to look and study the life of a man who stayed stuck in his brokenness until Jesus walks in and changes everything. Let's go to John chapter 5. And I'm going to read from verse 1 on. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. Now, I'm a Bible nerd, so I have to stop right there and share something beautiful that I saw right there. So we read that this pool is by the sheep gate. Now, the sheep gate is where they would bring in dirty sheep to clean it in the pool, then take it to the temple to be sacrificed. So this is a messy place. Then we see that there is a great multitude of sick people, blind, people with all sorts of ailments just laying there. And we know in that cultural context that most of the time when people had physical problems, deficits of any kind, that they were kind of ostracized and rejected by society. So these are the marginalized of society. And they're all in this place called Bethesda, which translates to house of mercy. Isn't it beautiful that the messy and the marginalized are at the house of mercy? This is good news for us because I don't know what mess that you've been walking through. I don't know if your finances are in a mess, your relationship are in a mess, or if you just had a messy week. There is room for you at the house of mercy. If you feel like there's not a place that you fit in, you don't have any friends, you don't have support, you feel like an outcast, there is room for you at the house of mercy. This is good news for you and me this morning. Let's keep reading. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water. Then whoever stepped in first after the stirring of the water was made well of whatever disease he had. Now a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been there for a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I am coming, another steps down before me." Jesus said to him, "Rise, take up your bed and walk." And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked. This man was waiting for the right moment for the past 38 years of his life. Imagine every day waiting for the right moment of the stirring of the water, waiting for the right moment when the angel would come, waiting for the right moment so he can be the first in the water. I think the number one reason that we stay stuck in our brokenness, the number one reason we don't live transformed lives, the number one reason we miss out on abundant life is because we are waiting for the right moment. I remember when I was in 5th grade, someone gifted me this little lip gloss palette, and it was special because it was tinted and scented. And I couldn't wear lipstick, but I could wear tinted lip gloss. So it's kind of cheating. So super excited. It was a special gift, but I would only use it for special occasions. I was saving it. So I hid it in a drawer, and one day I was getting ready to go somewhere, and I pulled it out, and it was completely empty. It looked like someone had dug their fingers and took all of it out. I knew who that someone was. It was my little annoying brother, Samson. So I started screaming, "Mom, Mom, And she ran in there and I was like, look at the injustice that has been done to me. My lip gloss, my precious gift is gone. And she calls my brother and, hey, what did you do? Why did you take her stuff? This is her lip gloss. Why did you take it? And his little 7-year-old eyes got really big. And he said, I didn't know it was lip gloss. And my mom said, it doesn't matter. It's not yours. What did you do to it? He said, I ate it. I thought it was candy. He ate my entire palette of lip gloss. And I think it was a funny moment, but God was trying to teach me a very important lesson. That I don't have to wait for the right moments in life to use the gifts that He has given me. That I don't need to save it for the right moment. I don't have to wait for the right moment to live the abundant life, live and experience the things that God has given me. And I wish I had learned that lesson then, but it's always been a struggle for me throughout my life. And I think someone here needs to hear that because you have been procrastinating your purpose because you want everything to be perfect. You hear the message and you want to respond, but you had a horrible week. Things are tense at home and you were short with your kids. You were short with your spouse. So today just doesn't feel like the right moment. You feel like the Holy Spirit is saying, honor me with your sexuality, and you want to obey. But God, I really like this person and I really need to get married. This is just not the right moment. You know you need to tithe and you need to be generous with your money. You want to be a good steward of your finances. You want to obey. But God, Amazon Prime and Black Friday and Cyber Monday and Christmas is coming. This is not the right moment. Can I tell you, church, there will never be a moment when every single thing will align and be easy and clear for you to respond. The right moment is the moment of your obedience. And you will feel stuck until you take the step. James chapter 2, verse 24 teaches us, you see that a person is justified by works and not by faith alone. So what I do, my response, my obedience matters as much as my faith. And the text that we read, we don't see that this man has any faith, right? He wasn't looking for Jesus. He didn't ask Jesus for a miracle. In fact, we read later that he didn't even know that it was Jesus. He doesn't know Jesus. But remember, at some point, this man came to this place with a desperate faith to be healed. And he remained there because of that desperate faith, but because of time, because of the waiting, his desperate faith has become dormant. And I think that's why Jesus' first words to him is, do you want to be made well? That's a silly question to walk into a place where every single person is sick and say, do you want to be made well? Everybody wants to be made well, right? But Jesus walks to him and asks him a deep question. It is deeper than simply, do you want to be made well? He's asking, why are you here? What brought you here? It was your desperate faith. What happened to your faith? And maybe you're here today and you used to be a person of great faith. You used to believe, but these days it feels harder to believe and pray with faith. There are things in all of our lives and this paralytic man that erodes our faith over time. I'll call them faith killers. And I have a list that we want to go over today of faith killers. First, we see disappointment. These are unmet expectations. It didn't work out the way I thought it would. I got bad news again and again. Then there's delays. You're still waiting for a change in your situation. You've been waiting and praying, but nothing seems to be happening. You're still waiting for your child to find Jesus. Then there's comparison. It just makes you feel stuck. You feel like you're watching everybody else get their miracle and walk out of the pool healed. You're watching everyone else get the thing that you've been waiting for, hoping for, and you feel like I'm the only one that's still blank, single, Didn't have a child yet. Don't know my career path yet. I'm the only one that's still blank. Next, there's isolation. He says, I have no support, right? There's no one to help me. And it's such a debilitating feeling when you feel alone in your struggle. Like it is just you carrying all of it, which leads to fatigue. And you're just overwhelmed by the weight of all that you are carrying, and you are just numb and overwhelmed by the reality of your life. This is not what you pictured. And your spirit is worn that you can't even have the strength. You don't even have the strength to hope anymore. And there's shame. Well, I tried and it didn't happen. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's my lack of faith. Maybe it's my prayer. Maybe I did something. And what if I try again? What if I hope again and it doesn't happen? Last, there's lukewarmness. It's just accepting it is what it is, right? He's like, at least I'm here. I'm in the place that I'm supposed to get healed, right? And he's just there for 38 years. And at some point, he's just kind of settled into, well, this is probably going to be my life. And his desperate faith became a complacent faith where we just go through the motions. What's interesting is that Jesus doesn't heal this man by saying, your faith has made you whole. He doesn't go over and touch him. Instead, Jesus gives him a command, a call to action. He says, rise, get up, take up your bed and walk. And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked. I don't want us to just quickly read past that because this is an amazing, miraculous moment. Do you know from going from laying down to standing up, it takes over 100 muscles in your bodies, over 200,000 nerves to work together in unison for that to happen. This is a miraculous moment. This is his ambush makeover, unrecognizable moment. So I want us to really sit in that and capture that. So I have a volunteer for us. So if Mason can come up. Now, Mason is not 38 even. How old are you, Mason?
17.
He's 17, and he is like a star athlete. He's a gymnast. So he's going to pretend to just lay down and not be able to move. All right. So Jesus, okay, I want you to imagine, Jesus comes up to this man, and he doesn't stretch out his hand and say, get up, right? Jesus speaks a word that requires a response from the man. Right? His dormant faith has to come alive at the word of Jesus. Faith comes by hearing and hearing the word, the Bible says. So he comes and gives him a command, get up. And now I am 38-ish, right? 38 plus. And so when you tell me to get up off the ground, I don't just get up like this, like Mason can, right? Because he's 17 and showing off, right? So, but this man is atrophied. His muscles have atrophied for 38 years. So the way this man would have gotten up, he has to try to bend his knees that haven't bent in 38 years. Then he has to somehow muster enough strength to go to the other side. See, it's not a single action. It's a multiple step process for him to do this. The man had to keep moving in faith. Miracles happen when you move. Thank you, Mason. Miracles happen when you move. Some of us are waiting for God to do all the work, but God is waiting for you to move. He's waiting for you. While you're waiting for a magic wand to be waved and do a one-step miracle, God is asking you to move from one step to the next step, to walk with him, trusting him in faith, because miracles happen when you move. See, when you respond in obedience, it may not make sense. It may seem awkward. It may seem hard. It'll feel like God is just stretching you, asking you to do hard things, things that are impossible by you. But you see how God showed up when you were able to bend your knees that you couldn't bend for 38 years. And that gives you faith to go over to the other side. Then that gives you faith, push yourself up. And God is building your faith. And every step that stretches you strengthens your faith. Miracles happen when you move. in faith. Then Jesus says to this man, take up your mat and walk. This is interesting to me because who cares about the mat, right? No one's thinking about the mat. They just saw a miracle, right? The man is not thinking about the mat. He's been paralyzed for 38 years and he can stand. No one's thinking about the mat. The people around him are not thinking about the mat. And in fact, the man carrying the mat in the temple is the reason that the Jewish leaders even spot him later in this text. They would never have noticed him. He would have just blended in the crowd. But because it was unlawful for him to carry the mat at Sabbath, according to their ordinances, they catch him. And they ask him in verse 11, or in verse 10, the Jews therefore said to him, to the man who was cured, it is a Sabbath, it is unlawful for you to carry your bed. And he says to them, he who made me well said to me, take up your bed and walk. Then they asked him, who is this man who said to you, take up your bed and walk? You see, the mat was the reason that they noticed him, that they asked him. The mat gave him the opportunity to share about the miracle that happened in his life. The mat mattered to his story because the mat is now the message that he would carry. The mat is now a message for you to carry. Your addiction, the divorce, the rejection letter, the diagnosis, that thing in your life that held you down once, your mat. Jesus is saying, don't rest in it, don't live in it, don't make it your home anymore. Jesus is saying this mat doesn't get to carry your sick body anymore. You get to carry it. Whatever it is in your life that had limited you, felt like it was defining you, kept you here. That was part of your story, but Jesus is saying it is not all of your story. Friend, you might have thought you were done, but God. You might have thought this was going to be your story, but God. You accepted this would just be your normal, but God. You thought it was too late for your marriage, but God. So let this mat remind you of the moment when Jesus walked into your impossible and made it possible. Let this mat remind you of how Jesus came into your life, into the unchangeable thing, and changed everything. Don't hide it. Take it with you and share it with the people around you. The mat is a message for you to carry. Finally, he tells the paralytic man to walk. He says, you have to walk away. You had to get out of here. You can't stay here anymore. This is a place for sick people. You have been healed. You have been made whole. You need to walk away. And you have to imagine, this is a hard thing for this man. This is all he knew for 38 years. These are his people. This is all he knows. This is what's familiar to him. And Jesus is saying, you have to walk away. When my dad, who was an alcoholic, he struggled with addiction most of his life. And God instantaneously healed my dad from addiction. He was the first miracle that I witnessed with my eyes. One of the first things that my dad did was he quit his job. See, my dad was a chef. He was a chef who worked at 5-star hotels all around the world, and he loved what he did. He was good at his job. He made good money doing it. But he knew if I went back to work, I would be around alcohol. I would be around people who drinks all the time. And I can't truly be transformed if I stay in the same circle. So he had to walk away. And for some of you in this room, you've been going through this series. I believe the last and the missing step in your healing is you need to walk away. You need to walk away. And only you know, and Jesus knows, the thing that you need to walk away from. The right moment is the moment of your obedience. When you walk away, you are walking towards Jesus. You are walking in purpose. You are walking in abundant life. And the right moment to do that is now. is now. Don't stay stuck in your brokenness. Don't settle for an okay life. Allow God to change, radically transform every part of you. Jesus said, I have come that they may have life and life abundantly. Friend, the offer is for you. The invitation is for you. Abundant life is yours. So the question that we have to wrestle with that Jesus asked this man is the same for you today. Do you want it? Do you want to be made well? Do you want to walk in wholeness? Do you want to experience abundant life? Jesus is here with mercy to meet you and change every part of you.